Robert Fulton was born on November 14, 1765, to Robert and Mary Fulton in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. As a child, Fulton had many ideas and liked to invent things. He attended a Quaker school when he was 8 years old. Fulton was only 9 years old when his father passed away. It was clear that he had a unique talent in drawing. When he was 15, he moved to Philadelphia. He served as an apprentice, then owning a shop, and then finally moving to Europe. Throughout his life, his skills would come in handy, giving him a job of painting, and then finally succeed through his ideas.
The United States is richly blessed with navigable rivers, especially west of the Appalachians and the great Mississippi watershed. But the water only flows one way. And goods would go to New Orleans, they would build what essentially was a raft and pile the goods on the raft, and then they'd take it down to New Orleans and they'd sell the goods and they'd break up the raft and sell it as lumber. But then getting back was another problem. The idea of putting a steam engine on a ship goes back to very shortly after James Watt developed his steam engine. People immediately said, well, we can do this, we can put this into a boat. But actually coming up with a system that worked took quite a while. I mean, John Fitch, an American inventor, developed a system where the steam engine would move racks of paddles. It was neat to look at, but it wasn't really very practical. And it was Robert Fulton, with his partner Robert Livingston, who came up with the first practical steamship. It was usually called the Clermont. It was named after Robert Livingston's estate up the Hudson. And Robert Livingston family was a very powerful, rich family in New York at that time, and he got the New York State Legislature to give them a monopoly on steam-powered navigation if he could get a boat that would go from New York to Albany in less than 24 hours. And the New York State Legislature thought, well, that's like, give them a monopoly on traffic to the moon. You're not going to be able to do that. And then, of course, the Clermonts took off in 1807 and then chugged its way merrily up the Hudson River in plenty of time, and so they had this monopoly. They were the only people legally allowed to operate steamships on the waters of New York State. The steamship immediately spread, especially to the Mississippi, and became part of the whole ethos of America. It's hard, you can't think of antebellum America without thinking of the steamships.
The boat that we're on here today is the Mary Theodora. It's named after my mother, who's 94 years old, and she still comes on the boat every now and then. The boat was originally a sailboat hull built in 1982, and it was converted by a fellow in New Jersey, and I redid all the upper woodwork. So now it pretty much looks like a turn-of-the-century cabin launch, and it runs on wood, which is kind of nice today considering the price of gasoline. It's pretty much like working a stove. You basically have a wood fire, and the wood fire is going to heat up the water. And that's pretty much how it runs. It operates at about 150 pounds of pressure, is your pressure gauge. And the two important things with a steam engine is you always make sure you have plenty of water in the boiler, and you want to see where your pressure is, because that's really what you're operating with, is the pressure. If you don't have any pressure, you're not going anywhere. This is a simple engine. It was built in St. Louis. So the way it works is the steam comes down this pipe here, which is well insulated for obvious reasons, and then it goes into the valve chest here, and it goes into the high-pressure cylinder. So the steam comes out of the high-pressure cylinder into this manifold, and then into the low-pressure cylinder. Then when it exhausts, it goes through the feed water heater, that copper cylinder there, which has a coil in it and it heats up the water that's going into the boiler. So you don't put cold water in the boiler. That's the water level of the boiler. And when the steam is generated, it comes off here, this insulated line, and it goes on down and into the engine. Nice and quiet.
Fulton started drawing concepts for underwater submarines for the French and designed an inclined plane system that took boats up and down the river. Fulton also drew himself looking out of the submarine that he designed. What was so important about the steamboat? Many people had already designed a steamboat, such as John Fisher, but it was never successful. Transportation in the early days was very slow. Fulton found out a way to let people travel from one place to another faster. Using the Watt engine, Fulton created an operating steamboat machine. Robert Livingston, Fulton's partner, did a major role in manufacturing the steamboat. He funded all the money towards the making of the steamboat. Without Livingston, Fulton would have never been able to share his ideas to the world. Fulton and Livingston did not go along well with each other. However, they still managed to get the work done. After creating the steamboat, they tested it on the Hudson River. On August 17, 1807, the steamboat, named the Clermont, traveled from New York City to Albany, New York. Traveling at 5 miles per hour, the Clermont finally arrived at Albany after 1 day and a half. Not long after that trip, he started to charge a small fee for anyone that wanted to travel back to New York City on his steamboat. Through Fulton's energy and awareness, he turned a dare of engineering into a commercial success, which led into a turning point in history.